And we're live. So, comment ça va?
Très bien.
Comment allez-vous?
Excellent, and you?
Welcome to another exciting episode of Dogs and Baskets. Today, I have with me Flo from France. And you've got some questions about dribbling and motion offense and triple threat and all this kind of good stuff.
Loads of questions.
Great, excellent. You just got back from a 3-week vacation holiday. How was that?
Awesome, as can be expected from holidays, I guess. A nice, well-deserved break before going into this season.
Yeah. And what season?
What season?
Oh, by the way, I want to mention for anybody watching this, this Thursday at 5:30 afternoon Pacific time, Eastern Standard Time, I'll be having Johnny Bansfield on, and him and I are going to discuss the framework of the game. And I've got a side wager with him that within 90 minutes, I'll be able to convince him that the entire rules need to be overhauled. So tune in for that. That should be actually very good. I'm looking forward to that very much.
I will tune in.
Yeah, I think it'll be a really great discourse and conversation. And I think I have a fairly good presentation that should make anybody who watches the game or loves the game sit back and say, holy shit, this needs to be changed. In any event, so let's talk about dribbling. You have any questions? What I'd like to do is maybe do a little Q&A to start off with and do some things. And then I'm going to do a maybe 10-minute kind of demonstration behind me on a few things that are, whatever I can do here in my living room. Some of the more important kind of things to remember. And then we can do some more Q&A after that. So where would you like to take this?
Sure. Okay, that sounds great. So we have several questions, of course, some regarding the actual technique, some regarding the different type of dribbles. So I'm not even sure where I want to begin. Maybe we'll start with the throws. Do you have some specific throws that you use more often than not for dribbling? For example, if you are the one dribbling or just the one doing the rebounds, do you prefer, if you are the rebound person, using either, I don't know, toss passes, sky hooks, push passes, or of course I'm guessing both hands. But well, what's your take on the actual pass that you will throw depending on the range and the motion?
Good question. First of all, on the rebounder, which is I call it the hardwood rebounder, but the person yeah, whatever. I like rebound. That's good. The person that you're going to be using to dribble off of, the dribbler is doing a tremendous amount of. They're doing all the heavy lifting here. They have a huge workload. So it's important on the rebounders to make their rebounds as simple, as easy, as vanilla, plain simple as possible. So generally, it's almost going to be, and I'll demonstrate here in a second, but the rebounders are their job is, it's almost like handing off a baton in a relay race. There should be nothing fancy, no sky hooks, definitely nothing upside down. 100%.
Mm-hmm.
Well, no, not of course. I've played with people that are just, don't want to go down too many rat holes here, but no, nothing upside down. There's so much. The critical things here are balance and quickness in terms of the rebounder getting it back into the throw, not just into the thrower's hands, but into the thrower's throwing grips. If you can see the difference between that, as quickly as it can, and with the lowest chance of a turnover or any mishap. So their job is just to be simple and to just be a rebounder, just be the hardwood floor. They're not going to. They're trying to take every variable out of him. As for the throws on the dribbler side, to me, the best throw in the book is a backhand lift. That's my meat and potatoes. Now,
All right.
it's important that people understand the difference between, and I guess I could almost start getting up and demonstrating here. A backhand lift and a high release are two different things. A high release is just a release point. So you can have a high release anything. A hammer is by definition a high release, but you can throw a regular air bounce high release or a lift high release, or a blade or anything. But the lift motion is, let me just get up here and try to demonstrate a little. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, perfect.
So a lift is the inverse of an air bounce. So an air bounce you throw with the nose up and you push down and it pops up. A lift is the opposite. You throw up with the nose down. And so a lot of my lifts when I'm dribbling are not, they're going to be about this height.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can throw a lift and people call it elevators. They go up, good 5 or 10 feet. But when I'm dribbling, the lift is in fact, this, if you watch people play disc golf, they throw a lot of lifts now, backhand lifts to try to get, as a putt.
Yeah, layouts and putts, yeah.
Right. So that's, I would say if I'm dribbling, easily half of my passes are going to be backhand lifts, either hand, of course. And then the rest of the throws, they're just everything. Push passes, a lot of flicks, really anything. But again, you really don't want to turn the disc upside down, throw scoobers or anything. Let me go ahead and do some of the demo I wanted to do. So dribbling is in hockey. It's in, let me turn this up a little bit. Dribbling's in soccer, basketball, of course, lacrosse in the form of cradling, field hockey, etc. And in all those games, there's something that I call idling. So like in basketball, you have a player a lot of times, maybe they're at midcourt or something, the defender's not up on them, and they're just dribbling. In soccer, the same thing, where they're in a field, the part of the field where the defender's not on them, but they're not just sitting there static. The ball's kind of bouncing around. Or in hockey, the same thing. It's just kind of moving. If you imagine if you pass me the ball, here's the pass, and I put the ball on the floor once, pick it up. Now I'm not in the triple threat position, and I stand out like this, and I'm trying to throw the ball or score it. That's what an ultimate player does.
Yeah, because you're not allowed to dribble anymore.
Right. So imagine how stupid it would be for a basketball player, as soon as they catch the ball from someone else, put it on the floor once and catch it, and then stand out like this. This is what most ultimate players do. Mm-hmm. So the reason I say that is, this will maybe surprise some people, but when I have the disc in my hand, I would call this, what I'm about to do, dribbling. So I'm pivoting around, I'm push passing, I'm throwing, I'm going like this. I'm constantly moving like this. This is idling. This is idling in the same way as in soccer or basketball, when they're just sitting there. Even though I'm not dribbling to anyone in ultimate, when I'm doing that, it has that same effect of keeping the motor running. So I'm always having options, even before I've done any sort of dribbling against any of my rebounders. I'm just dribbling. I'm obviously not throwing to myself, but it has the same effect by just constantly changing hands, going in 360 degrees. If I'm doing this and I've got a vert stack in front of me, it looks retarded because there's no one to fake to. But if I have players on this side, downfield, and I've got all these fakes going, the entire defense has to
respect the threats.
They have to completely pay attention to everything I'm doing. And furthermore, as I'm doing this, I'm constantly surveying the defense and the offense. So I may go out here and fake here and fake here. I know what's happening there because I just looked at it. I'm setting up a play. I know the play is going to come back here and I'm dribbling around and then I go here because I've already set that up. So idling, like I'm saying, gives the dribbler much better field vision of what's going on. And in that way, I'm setting up 3 or 4 or 5 dribbles downfield as I'm idling.
Okay, perfect. So that was actually one of my questions. With the way we describe the game, we try to categorize it with different type of advantages. So spatial is pretty obvious, positional as well. The fact that being centered is way better than being on the sideline, for example. And the initiative is the last component. That's the way you can dictate pace, and that's precisely so what you're doing, but by idling. Okay.
Yeah, idling takes care of all that. You're constantly setting, you're grounding yourself, and when you're idling, you're creating the defense that they have to sit there as a whole unit, and they're kind of frozen. So that way you can carve out the offense the way you want to.
Okay, perfect. The trick is, you when you are idling, you have to make sure that you're not, I guess, committing too much or just out pivoting anything, just not to relinquish the ability to go on a dribble. I'm not sure if I'm being clear. What I mean is, you want to keep a huge focus on balance, right?
Absolutely, 100%. So as you notice, in fact, I'm going to get to a few things as I do sort of my rundown of the mental cues to pay attention to. But as I'm going here, I'm constantly, my weight, instead of, again, I like this comparison. Just try to imagine playing basketball with the standard ultimate frisbee stepping out. Where's the balance here? It's about 18 inches off of center of gravity. Whereas when I'm idling, my balance is right on top of my pivot foot the entire time. And the conventional wisdom, the traditional answer is, what about the marker? How can you be balanced straight up and have the marker right there? Don't you have to concern yourself with them? In the 360 degrees, the marker is only 60, 70 degrees. So as you're constantly doing this, the marker is really irrelevant.
Yeah, sure. That's not the marker was not my main concern to be.
No, I understand. I know a lot of people will have that. I've heard it thousands of times. Well, Frank, how can you, because I'm telling people to do the opposite of this. And they're saying, well, how do I get her on the marker? It's easy.
My main concern was the potential loss of information by doing so if you are pivoting too quickly. But I guess if you just stay enough time in a given angle just to make sure that you've seen the field developing in front of you and then change, then you're not gonna have this problem. So you have to make sure that idling is, I mean, always in motion, quite quick, but not too fast, depending on your ability to see the field.
So when you're driving down the freeway on a 3-lane highway, right?
Yeah. Okay. I don't have the driving license, but I can understand this.
Then that makes it difficult. Most people would understand, like, so when I'm driving and you're on 3 lanes, you got, basically 8 spots around you, 1, 2, 3 in front, 1, 2, 3 in back, and left and right. Mm-hmm. And as I'm driving, where all those are at the whole, usually when I'm on the freeway, I know all 8 of those positions all the time. So I'm, if I'm doing this, it's the same thing. I always can see where people are around me. That's not, how long does it take you to see, as long as you're moving, if you're just getting used to idling, you're constantly building a composite image of where the defenders are off and offenders are on the field. So that's not, I get the concern, but
No,
Maybe
it's
it's
irrelevant. Yeah.
it's an acquired skill. It takes some time, I guess, to get used to. The more you do idling, the more you do dribbling, the softer the defense gets. So there's this expression in sports, definitely here in the US, letting the game come to you. That just means letting the game gets easy after some time. And you slow down. And for me, like, defenders are moving in half speed. They're moving in slow motion because my perception of the number of conscious awareness points as I'm dribbling and doing things compared to the defense, I don't know if I'm making any sense at all.
Yeah,
But the more you dribble, the more you idle, the softer the defense gets. The softer the defense gets, the easier it is to penetrate. And the more you penetrate, the softer the defense gets. So your question's good. The more you do it, the more you'll realize you can pay attention to all these things around you as you're idling and set up whatever kind of throw you want. So that way, when you actually do execute that push pass and you penetrate, you've already predetermined in your mind what's going to happen, and you just execute it.
Yeah, you also have the advantage of having a 360 degrees vision, and then you make sure that you don't have some crazy defender just trying to get an unlikely block.
They can't. The idling neutralizes the defense tremendously well, because they can't key on any one thing, because you've got them guessing. And because I've got a backfield, a couple players behind me, flankers, and then some forwards, a center post, the defense, you can't have man-on-man defense covering each one of those. There's always going to be one or two or three, even maybe more throwers, more receivers, rebounders open.
Okay, exactly. And that, I think that does a nice transition with the next question. We agree wholeheartedly that being in the center is tremendously important. So if you are shaping, just like you described, with the center post, the flankers, and the forwards and the backs, you need to have the disc in the center. And so I have two questions regarding this. The first one is, how do you get your team to make sure that they are leaving people behind the disc? That's more of a general concern, but I have trouble making sure that they are not just sprinting downfield and leaving the the poor disc holder with no one behind. That's maybe if you have any drills that can actually make sure that people are getting used to be more evenly spread on the field, that would be awesome. And the second question was, how do you start off a sideline? We agree that sideline is not the best place at all.
Wait, out of bounds or inbounds? Like on a check disc on the sideline?
Yeah.
Okay, so I have and I developed this in the early 90s, late 80s, and did this successfully for 10 years. I have a series of hand signals, and of course you can change those, whatever. But I guess a better way of saying it is I have a series of configurations, usually, and it depends on if it's force middle or force side, but let's say it's force sideline. So here's the sideline, and I'm going this way. I'll have one player 5 yards down from me on the sideline, and one player another 5 yards. And then the other four are more like a diamond shape downfield. You have the forward, center, post. And then based on the defensive alignment on those first two players,
okay,
I'll call.
Excuse me. Can you explain once more the positioning? My French, my English not good enough to
No problem.
to follow that.
The four people downfield are not too important.
Okay.
In fact, you can do all kinds of stuff. So basically, it's just me and the two players in front of me. one player will be about 5 yards in front of me, 5 meters, say. And then another player will be another 5 yards, so 10 meters from me.
All right.
And based on the defensive alignment, I'll come up and I'll see, okay, this defender, let's say the defender's is here, giving my first receiver the middle of the field. I'll give a hand signal. That'll mean the second guy goes out and the first guy goes to the middle. I throw it to that guy. And if so now the team has seen me do that 10 times and they're pissed off because they keep getting beat. Now the first defender is on the inside of this player. So then I'll call a different play and the second player will go over. And I've got a half dozen, 8 different plays based on that configuration and based on how the defensive aligned. On my site, I've got the statistics, player efficiency rating. On that play, over a 10-year period in the Bay Area, I guess my assertion is we had a player efficiency, or you could even call it a play efficiency rating. A player efficiency rating on that play that would be a 2, which if you look at that statistic, that's off the charts efficient.
Yeah, it's amazing.
It's amazing. The average time of throw would be
half a second.
Less. Yeah, I mean, it's just check this, boom. I've already called the play. They know what they're doing. And our completion percentage on it over 10 years would have been in the high 90s. So it was, I don't understand of all the things I ever did in the Bay Area, I don't understand why that was never copied. It was extraordinarily successful. I mean, just ridiculously. And this is on a side out where usually the sideline is the hardest.
Yeah, that's the worst place in Ultimate to be in. So
no, it's not. No, we got to the point where on a pole that went out of bounds, we were calling it on the sidelines because the advantage is if you can have that kind of player efficiency rating on the sideline, you've got the whole entire field to play with once you break it. And we were correct. So no, the sideline's not the worst place. And in fact, something else you said on the first part of your question, and I'll get to the main question you asked, which was about maintenance behind the disc. Mm-hmm. It's the center of the field, as they say in the United States, between the hash marks on an American football field is sort of the center third of the field.
Okay.
That's a good place to be, but it's also really good to run a lot of flow towards the sidelines and a lot of counter plays and a lot of misdirection plays and play action plays, a lot of stuff at the sideline for the same reason I just gave. But you do it with a lot of intention that you're going to run the play there and then get back into the middle of the field. So don't just avoid the sidelines. That would be a big mistake. As far as your main question about maintenance behind the disc, that's really the role of the flankers. And there's another position in my offense called a rocker back or a secondary point guard. And that's their job, is to always have backfield support. If you don't have backfield support in this offense, you're giving up half of your leverage. I mean, it's so critical. So it's more of, that's what I teach. And there's a position and you have to always have a trailer. You know, as I'm dribbling up and down the field, there's a rocker back behind me who's just constantly providing support so that no matter what I'm doing, so they're just kind of carving up the field behind me in the event that they're ever needed. And they're going to be, the rocker back is another point guard dribbler kind of player. So whenever they get the disc, they're going to take off and then I'll be the rocker back.
There is a saying in rugby, which is something like last passer, first, not jump, but first helper, something like that. It translates roughly to the last person that has done a pass is the one that has to make sure that the current disc holder has someone to fall back on. So okay, I think I understand this.
So it's more of a philosophical team thing than it is a drill or a strategic thing or tactical. It just needs to be understood that one player is their, that's their role. It's a supporting role, and they have to, they end up doing, the rocker back does a lot of work because they're going coast to coast down the field behind, from sideline to sideline. If I'm dribbling this way, they're going to be providing support, and then I run a counter play. I'm going, so they're actually running a lot of times more than the point guard is. It's sort of a thankless job, but it's critical. So it's a great question. Let me, I want to go through a few things on
Sure.
what things to emphasize for any team that's learning how to dribble. So first thing is call traveling, and a traveling's a turnover in your practices. There's absolutely no reason in the world why every team shouldn't call turnovers as a traveling and make it a three-step hard cap limit. Balance is the name of the game. And if you're not balanced, and no matter what your offense is, you're not going to be as good as you are if you're balanced. That's just common sense. The 3 steps is, you want to be able to idle as soon as you catch the disc. Right. Which means that as you're dribbling, as you're idling and you're identifying, you want to identify a dribble where you can decelerate into the catch and be stopped or idling in 3 steps or less. This is just essential. The more, if you had a team that did this and understood this and stop saying, well, that can't be, it can be, it's easy. If you just emphasize that mindset, 3 steps, no travel, get into a position of idling within 3 steps. You may not idle, you may come into the step and you may just continue dribbling. Sure. That's fine, but you should always be in a position, if that person's not there, you're going to idle some more, penetrate, idle, penetrate, idle. I want the players, the dribbler and the rebounders to throw with their catching grips. And why do I say this? If you catch like this, I want you to throw like that. And of course, not in a tournament situation, but it's kind of a drill. It's kind of just a philosophical mindset. The best catch for a rebounder or thrower is like this. Both throwing grips, both hands. From here, you got this, you got this, you got this. Oh, upside down pass. You've got, how many passes do you have from here? There's a lot. It's the most. Maybe 8, 10, 12, depending, ambidextrous. So it's incumbent on the dribbler to put the disc into the rebounder's hand so he can be like this. Because he's doing all the work, and it would be dumb if he throws it up here. So now I caught it like this. I'm going to have to throw it like this. It's incumbent on the dribbler to make it for his own hip flexors and all the energy that goes into having that explosive first step, to make sure all his catches are like this on his rebounders. And similarly, when the rebounders put it back in the thrower's hands, they want to win. So they want the main dribbler to always catch like this if he can. It just makes the game very easy. So let me just finish off a couple things here on what the emphasis, the focal points of dribbling, especially if you're doing drills. I want to make sure that if you throw it, your non-pivot foot is up in the air. This is what I emphasize in all my, this will force you to be balanced. It's almost impossible to travel if you're doing a dribble and your non-pivot foot is up in the air. And the way I do it, if I'm doing if I'm teaching and I'm running a scrimmage, it's a turnover. If you throw a dribble and your weight's out on your non-pivot foot, I just don't do that. So I make that a turnover. Decelerate into your catches, throw with your catching grip. You want to catch like this. So if you're running at me, I'm the rebounder. this is probably the last thing. There may be one or two things I'm forgetting, but these are the main points. If you're running on this side of me, on my left side, it's a lefty. If you're running on this side of me, it's a righty.
Right.
So everybody in the world is an ambidextrous thrower. If you're right here, this isn't even a throw. That's handing off a baton. Obviously, in ultimate, you can't do handoffs, but you can. Oh, that's the other thing. As the dribbler, I'm sure there's a few more things. As a dribbler, as I'm coming in to the rebounder, I'm coming pretty much straight at him. And just at the last minute, I might veer off one way or the other, but I've got this defender somewhere behind me, and I want to give him this. I want to minimize the angle that he can get the D.
Yeah, definitely.
And
that's
so
also...
right. So if I'm going out here and my rebounder's there, that gives a tremendous angle for the defender to get in there. But if I'm coming right at the guy, the sort of the litmus test is if the number of steps that I take, and even if it's 3 steps, if the distance I get after the catch is longer than the throw, that's a good thing. So if the throw's only, a foot and I take 3 feet catching the disc and moving on, that's a sign of a good dribble.
Okay, perfect. A lot of these general considerations are fairly easy to pass on. That's perfect. The one I see people struggling the most with is that if you are dribbling towards the right side of the rebounder, he has to throw it with a righty and on left side a lefty. I see countless people doing a whole pivot to do exactly the opposite.
And that's a turnover. That's a turnover in my practices.
Okay, perfect.
I mean,
it's a good point.
There's, it's funny how the human mind works. You put your hand on a hot stove and you learn really quickly, don't put your hand on a hot stove. So all these things, the 3 steps, you go beyond that. And, you put up with a lot of bitching and moaning, players, you're up, travel, turnover, and ultimate players take that really personally. I mean, it's after about 15 or 20 minutes, it's amazing. They stop doing it. There's a penalty. Don't do that. You've pivoted, like you said, the one you said, I've seen that thousands of times. It's like, why are you pivoting? It's so error prone. Like, what are you doing? Make it a turnover. There is an alternative. Instead of, I guess it's the same thing. I mean, technically, you could throw a push pass instead of this. The main thing is to stay square, hip to hip. Like the rebounder's hips are facing the dribbler's hips 100% of the time. It's just easiest to do this. But if you have to throw a push pass to get to the same place, I don't recommend it. But it's an alternative that fits the paradigm.
Okay, my wife hates push passes because she says that there is never enough spin on it. What I tried to explain was I thought easier when the dribbler has not. Okay, so let me go back to the beginning. I am trying to teach for the rebound to throw it as soon as you get it, or as quickly as you get it.
No. Well, go ahead, continue.
Yeah.
Well. So let me allow you to answer ask your full question in a second, because you're kind of right. But it's the thrower's responsibility, which is why I like the backhand lift as the primary dribble move. you want on all your dribbles, whether the dribble is a 20-yard throw, which is possible and doable, I do it all the time, or a 5-yard, 10-yard, whatever the distance is. 20 is pretty much as far as you want to do it on any given segment. It's incumbent on the dribbler. You want to arrive just behind the disc. If the disc gets there too early, then the thrower can't throw it immediately, or because that's too long of a throw. And if you arrive too quickly, you're already beyond the thrower. So you want to be able to have the touch so that you're literally running with the disc. You put enough a finesse, enough touch on it, so that as you're running, the disc is never very far in either distance or time away from the dribbler, if that makes sense. So in that case, you're correct that the thrower should be throwing it as quickly as possible, but it's really the dribbler who's making that a reality. So the fact that you're emphasizing the rebounders should be doing that quickly, it to me sounds like the emphasis is sort of in the wrong point. Okay. It's a throw. A good point guard will elicit that without making it a condition of being a good rebounder. The thrower, the dribblers, just that's their job to make that elegant, simple.
All right.
Anyway, so what was your question?
Yeah, I get that, and it's very interesting. What I was getting at is that if by mistake you are a little bit on the slow side and you are still in front of the rebounder, the favored pass is a push pass, and if you are just slightly behind because you were too fast, then it's a lift. But that's mainly cosmetic, I guess.
I would say, so let me get to some point here. So I'm the rebounder. Now let's say you're the rebounder. Okay. I don't know how this is going to look, but it's kind of interesting on Zoom. It's almost like, so I'm the dribbler, and I come in and I make some signal. Typically I go like this. And this is a signal for we're running a play action pass. In American football, play action pass is, the quarterback comes back, he fakes the handoff to the running back coming through, and then he drops back and passes it. So the play action is all the defense thinks it's a run, and so they're all playing for that, and they all scrunch up there, and then the quarterback comes in and does something else because the defense has completely played into this. In ultimate, if you can imagine, I do the backhand lift. I'm coming in and I go like this. It's a play action pass because all the defense thinks I'm going to continue dribbling. You're the only one who can really see me. And of course, any team can have any signal on any given day of what a play action is. And so you can run a fake. This probably isn't the best fake play action, but because you have to open up your hands again, but you can run a fake play action just because the sidelines, you can imagine play action, and then the sidelines are screaming at the defense, don't buy into it. But point is, I'm running a play action. I come in like this, you just caught the disc, and I would normally call a play action if the throw got you too early or too late. See, and that makes sense, right? So that's why I kind of segued into that. As you're dribbling and the throw is either there way too early or way too late. So now the timing is screwed up. You don't want either of those to happen. You really want that timing to be simultaneously. You're arriving just behind the disc, and the rebounder, they don't do anything. You don't want them thinking. All they do is put the disc back in your hands. I come in here and run a play action pass. All the defense thinks I'm going through. Meanwhile, you catch the disc and you go,
somewhere
90
else.
degrees in some other direction. The whole defense has gone one way. Now you're the dribbler and you're going a different way. It's an excellent diversionary tactic. I mean, it just when you start running play action passes, they're beautiful because your marker sees me coming in on the dribble, so they have to sit soft. My markers, defenders coming with me. I run a play action. I've taken 2 defenders out of the play. Now you're dribbling in the opposite direction all by yourself.
Right. That will require defense to actually start to understanding what dribble is. Maybe the defense is not there yet.
So where I have played, they are there. Okay. A lot in the San Francisco Bay Area, some in North Carolina. So that happens organically. Mm-hmm. It happened a lot in the Bay Area where people got used to me playing, and they, it just starts going from checkers to chess, and then you can run legal pick and rolls. A pick and roll is a basketball play, but you can do it legally in Ultimate. You can run counter plays, misdirection plays, play action passes. There's all kinds of things you can layer on. The more the defense starts to guard against dribbling, the more the easier it is to get your objectives met.
Yeah, okay. I would love to have, if you have a list of this type of plays and how they translate to Ultimate, I would love to get to know them from a European perspective, where basketball is slightly less represented and American football is almost unknown of. Yeah, I would love to have your intake on that and know the different types of dribblings technique that you can use if you recognize a specific situation that is more suited towards pass action play or stuff like that. That would be truly awesome.
Okay, so the play action is what we just did, mm-hmm. which is, and most of the time I'm running a play action is when I'm exhausted. I'll dribbled so many things, and it's like, okay, your turn. I'm good. Right. And then you hand off. Right. A handing, it's like the token. Yeah. Like this is a token as you're dribbling. Okay, it's your token. Now you go with it. And it's better to do it collaboratively so it's known on the offense. Okay, now it's your turn. Okay, now it's your turn. Rather than it just being by default. Oh, okay. Because that happens, right? Sometimes I don't even dribble, I pass, which is one of the options in the triple threat. Now that person's they're the point guard. A misdirection play is very simple. Generally in Ultimate, if you're watching a game, some conventional Ultimate Frisbee, 99% of the Ultimate players in the world knows what's going to happen the next throw, correct? Yes. 90%, let's say 60%, who cares?
That's why we don't watch it anymore, but yeah.
But you understand what I'm saying, that there's this expectation, dump swing, continuation, whatever the thing is. So a misdirection is a dribble that does the opposite of what everybody is expecting. So instead of the play action pass, I've dribbled and I've come downfield. I've hit 2 or 3 people. Everybody thinks I'm going that way, and I catch the disc, and I just turn around and I do a dribble, some completely random direction. And a counter play is the same thing as a misdirection, except it's, let's say, a good example of a counter play would be, and you can go back and watch this video. This would be the most of it. A counterplay would be, instead of a dump swing, would be a dump penetrate.
Yeah, okay. I love this one.
Right.
When I was doing only conventional Ultimate, I love this one. Every time you just have to slightly shift your balance towards the swing side, and you see the whole defense shifting with you. You just have to go back towards where you came from. Okay.
Well, not from where you came from, because a dump swing, I mean, ideally, so a dump is on a sideline, to somewhere in the middle. Yeah, you lean that way, but a dump penetration would be more
yeah, aim towards the end zone, I guess. But
yeah,
I agree. That's
yeah. But it could
was
be
my
any
bread
of
and butter.
those, but normally that's the best counterplay that the most easily to understand counterplay, but that's what a counter is.
Sure. Okay.
And then a pick and roll, a legal pick and roll. God, how can I explain this?
Yeah, this one will be tricky. I'm sorry.
So pick and roll in basketball, I can't even. You intentionally create a switch in basketball through a pick, and then the player who got picked off of rolls, and so you have this position where you have two defenders sort of in no man land, and then if you can get the ball to the person who if you can get a person to the roll person, then they have an easy layup or an easy shot. So you intentionally create a pick, and then exploit that. So the most common pick that I do, what do I have here? Don't know what I've got. Is now picks are legal in Ultimate outside of 9 feet 10 inches. Yes, they are.
Okay. Yeah. 3 meters. Okay.
Right. Absolutely legal. And don't give me any shit about spirit of shit. I don't care. I agree, yeah. No, you may agree. I'm talking to the 8 million, spirit of the game people out there who think, well, the picks are illegal. They're legal outside 3 meters. So the more you idle and the more you dribble in 360 degrees, the more you're going to see your ability to put 3 meters on your marker gets real easy. You're going to get 1 meter just because they're off balance, and then you only have 2 meters. You can put that on. That's 2 steps. And then lots of times, because of the dribbling and the idling, you're going to have 3 meters in between a receiver and their marker, right? So I get the 3 meter separation between my defender, and I got 3 meters here. I come in between these two, right? I don't know if you can see. I've got my receiver and I've got his defender way off him. I cut in there and I'm faced like this. There's no pick there, correct?
Yeah, sure, because you're above the minimal distance for a pick. Yeah.
Right. Now that they changed the rule, like in the 11th edition, it's a horrible rule change. It used to be not even a pick at all, but now you can't do that. But if I catch the disc, how is that a pick? Anyway, so I catch the disc here because I've cut, everything's legal. There's no pick. I've caught the disc, and this guy here that I don't know, there's my chair.
Shielded, yeah.
Here's my chair. This is his defender. Right now, I'm right here. Who's my marker? Is it my defender who's back here behind me, or is it this chair? Right? So no pick. This is my marker. You can't say, well, he's not your marker. He is. I mean, he's standing right next to him and he's blocking me because I've got the disc right in front of him. Right? So now I dish back to this guy that I cut underneath from, and I spin around here in front. No pick. Completely legal. My defender here is probably drifting off and covering this guy, or he's mostly just lost.
Yeah, probably.
Now I'm downfield. I catch the disc. It's a completely legal pick and roll move in Ultimate Frisbee. And by the time, of course, they call it on me all the time, but it's bullshit because it's legal. But now I've caught the disc and I'm downfield and I've got 2 defenders. It's a beautiful thing.
You lost 2 defenders and there is only one attacker lagging behind. So basically you've just created a material superiority. That's fairly neat play.
And when you do it normally, as in basketball, and of course basketball teams have learned how to recover from it, But generally speaking, there's finger pointing between those two defenders that are behind me, because neither of them knows for sure who's got me. Because that new defender is all of a sudden my new marker. He didn't meant to be. I kind of forced it on them. So that other defender thinks, well, you've got him. No, you've got him. And neither of them have me. Yeah. So those are the main: play action, misdirection, counter, and and pick and roll.
Okay, I think I've got them all.
All based on dribbling and idling.
Yeah, I will watch this over and over, but yeah, I think I've got them all. I had another question regarding dribbling, which is about the two other threats. How much do you use dribbling compared to passing and scoring? Will you, for example, sometimes just dribble for the sake of it instead of scoring?
I always dribble for the sake of it.
Okay.
I live to dribble. I mean, dribbling to me is like snowboarding. Like it's so much fun. And it's such a beautiful form of free expression. It's my dance, and this is my motherfucking dance partner. Like the things I can do with this and carve up the defense and manipulate the defense and the field, and it's a great thing. That said, I can play and never dribble once, if you exclude idling. I do a lot of idling, but
Okay.
The point is that if it's in the heads of the defense, that dribble threat is there, I can play and never dribble and still apply the triple threat.
Sure, the threat is sometimes more menacing than the execution. So okay.
Oh, absolutely. Right. It has to be legitimized. If you don't have a legitimate threat, it's not a legitimate threat.
Sure.
But there's no real good answer to your question. There will be, the East Coast variation where it's a 30, 40, 30 split, and the West Coast variation, which is 50, 30, 20. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, okay, perfect. But what I mean is there is quite a decent percentages of the two other threats anyway. You're not like doing a 95 3 2.
It's pretty close to that.
Okay.
I mean, depending on how good a shape I'm in and my endurance and stamina, it would probably be around 95-5 or 80-10-10 or something like that. Like, because there's this adage in American football of establishing the running game to set up the passing game. And so dribbling is that. It's a running game, and ultimately you're literally running with the disc. It's like running along the beach with your dog. You take the leash off, but the dog's still running with you. I'm running with the disc all the time. When I'm on my game, it's more 80-90%.
Right.
Especially if you're including the idling as a component of dribbling, which I'm doing all the time when I'm standing with a disc. So it's a pretty significant percentage for me.
Right. All right. So that's something that was needed. So, for example, I think there is no way to really stop a dribble, but when there are too many defenders on a given area, dribbling becomes riskier just because of the inherent chaos of the area. So I think that's a fairly decent time, for example, to look for a pass and to make sure that the next dribbler can have fun all he wants because there is no defender there.
I don't think the things you're saying are not, let's just say they're not consistent with my experience, the whole thing you just said.
All right.
Like when I'm dribbling and they've got kind of man on man on me, I don't want to beat the defender too badly. In other words, no, I'm not. I mean,
I
you can mean that. You can understand in a few ways. I want to make sure I'm dragging him along.
Yeah, he's still trailing.
Right. If I beat him too bad, then he'll just stop, and then someone else will pick me up. It's more advantageous for me to bait him into playing along with me. I don't want to get too much of an advantage over him. So in the same way, like you're saying, get the guy, cluster a whole bunch of defenders together and then pass it to someone else where he can dribble. Well, who's he going to dribble to? Because all the rebounders are with me. So you can't.
I was not
Okay.
implying specifically that the rebounders were with you.
Right.
What I mean is, for example, the defense just panics because it sees you dribbling effortlessly, and so you are with your rebounder, and there are like 3 or 4 defenders just try and put a stop to this dribble. Isn't this the perfect situation just to go with a long pass towards the other side of the field and let the dribbling continue someplace else? I know it's a very theoretical situation because I've
No,
not.
it's not that. No, it's not theoretical. It's a great question. I'm just salivating. Like, like you're describing what I live for. They're all frustrated. They don't know what to do. That's where I step on their neck. That's where my boot goes on their neck, and I go for the jugular. That's when I really pour it on. That's because that's the mental game. Because in sports, all sports, when you win the mental game, you've won. And to me, that's the passing the disc out of there. So my experience is the last thing I want to do when they're confused and they're frustrated and they're pissed off and they start fouling me or trying to foul me because they're desperate, or that's when I pour the gasoline on the fire. I mean, but I could see tactically what you're saying, like, or strategically, yeah, you want to
Explore the leverage that you've got from the defense,
right. And I just feel like doing what you're saying, maybe it's more counterintuitive what I'm saying, probably is, but it's for me to throw it out of that is giving up a lot of leverage, let's say. And of course, there's no hard and fast, yeah, maybe some percentage I will want to throw it out or something. Sure. But it's more I've got them right where I want them. Why would I give
Yeah, I see.
It's sort of like in basketball, you want the ball in your hands at the end of the game. You don't want to give it to the other shooter. Like that's what you're describing. It's like, no, put the ball in my hand. And when I'm dribbling and one of my teammates takes the ball out of my hand, because ultimately you have to trust your teammates to not take it out of your hand. It drives me nuts. Like, no, they can't stop me, man. What are you doing? So,
yes, okay.
So that's something that you'll kind of learn. And as you get into it, you'll be like, oh yeah, let's get it out of there. I think it'll be more riskier for you to throw that pass than it would be to just to continue pounding, and I'm not saying you're wrong or whatever, but just the way you described it's like, wow, that's, yeah.
Yeah, okay, I understand what you mean. I was going for something like, oh, you think you've stopped my dribbling? Well, try to stop the dribbling that will happen in 1 second at the other side of the pitch with no defenders at all. But I get what you mean, and I agree. If you're able to keep on pushing and going for the jugular, go for
without
it.
any risk, right? If it's not risky, which it's not. I mean, if they can't stop me, they can't stop me. Mm-hmm. Then why let them off the hook?
Yeah, okay. I was worried of the inherent risk of having more defenders. That being said, you said something really interesting, and trying to foul you. That's something I've started to experience.
Yeah.
Are you able...
Congratulations, you've made it to a blue belt.
How do you are you able to throw accurately while being fouled on? Because that's so frustrating to have to call a foul and having the game stop.
Yeah, that's where I start throwing punches.
Okay.
So I try not to call fouls because there's just no advantage. You get no, unless
agree.
you're pissed off, you need to cool down. But even then, there's no advantage to calling foul. Balance, especially if you're idling, or if you want to kind of vacillate, alternate in between dribbling and idling. Balance is everything. I mean, imagine being on a skateboard or surfing or ice skating and someone's knocking you off balance. What part of that's fun? And we can get into the whole political thing. I'm going to talk with Johnny Bansfield on Thursday about the situation. So, because it needs to be fixed. The rules were not made for dribbling, period. And if you're playing a conventional, two teams are playing conventional and they're playing rough, or they're not playing rough, it's not an advantage for one team or the other. But if you got a finesse team that's dribbling against this coarse, crude team that's playing smash mouth, it's a huge advantage to the mediocre team to just foul the crap out of you. Okay, I'll get off my soapbox.
No, but okay, that's a good answer.
But it's still incumbent on you as the dribbler to mitigate this. In fact, the whole offense, and of course you can look at soccer or hockey or whatever, but if you just look at basketball, there's 1,000 different offenses in basketball. Let's say 100, let's say 10, doesn't matter. They all have dribbling. So in other words, this isn't a dribbling offense. It's just dribbling is
basic component of the offense.
Dribbling is just a tactic. A flick is a tactic. Pivoting is a tactic. An in-cut is a tactic. A tactic is just a building block. It's not, doesn't have a concept associated with it. A strategic concept. Right. It's just like, imagine no one in ultimate throwing a flick, and then someone comes along, hey, there's this throw to, we can't run a flick. We can't run a flick offense. What is that? Like, come on. I just did something here. I did it. If that makes sense to people. People really need to understand dribbling is just a tactic. How you use a tactic is a strategic decision, and you base your strategic decisions on your overall philosophy. But dribbling itself is just a tactic. When you're the dribbler, you have more control than you think you do on the amount that you get fouled. And it's just in your best interest, because the rules aren't fair, to try to not get fouled as much and as hard as you can. And the whole offense that I developed based on dribbling and triple post and triangle offense and motion offense came as a result of the ugly era in Ultimate in the late 80s, when in the early 80s, people kind of played by the spirit of the game and they played by the rules. The Ugly era, which should be understood in the Ultimate community because it really changed the game for the better or for the worse, but it's a big part of what happened. Teams started laying out all the time on defense, just no matter what. Even if they never got a D on somebody, they'd still lay out. And so I mitigated all that by developing dribbling. And so it's just, the more you idle, the more you dribble just for the sake of dribbling, the less they foul you. And it sucks. Fouling sucks. And it's not fair that there's no remediation for it, but that's just the way it is. So for the time being, take it into your own hands that you're not going to be fouled, and do the best you can.
Sure. Okay. Do you have any? Yeah, I'll do my best anyway. And I think releasing the disc even quicker helps not getting fouled, because
idling helps a lot. Yeah. Idling helps a lot because it just keeps them off balance on the backs of their heels. And if you can keep them on the backs of the heels, they just can't queue up on you like they can if you're playing conventional and they're anticipating. So idle as much as you can.
Idling will be a key component to a key take home message. Do you have practiced something with beach rules or indoor rules with 5 people? How would you imagine the structure shaping out instead of the regular one center post and the other players around?
Oh, so beach is the stupidest thing I've ever. Beach should have never happened. I mean, you go ahead and take, let's say, my best 75 moves and neutralize them. Yeah. Where can I sign up for that? I want to go play in quicksand. Like, forget about it. Like idling and dribbling and on beach. No, thank you. I'd rather, imagine a million things that are more mundane than that, or less mundane. Yeah. I have a game, let's say. It's a drill, it's a game, it's more of a game. It's a lot of fun, and it really helps everything we've talked about. And I call it Ball Breaker. It was developed in the winter of 1992, spring of 93. And you play 3-on-3, and it's a really great, and you can do, I did it when I coached here at App State. We were doing 4 games at once. So that's, that's 24 players. You can just, so as a team, you're quadrupling the amount of touches per minute instead of just doing a scrimmage.
That's one of the things we insisted on with my wife, is that whenever you can, just do mini games with less people, just to maximize the number of touches. That's something that's incredibly obvious, and I have no idea why it's not done more. But okay, I fully agree on that.
So let me explain the rules. The field's roughly 10 yards wide, 20 yards long, with 5-yard end zone. So it's a very mini field. There's no poles. And actually, the way you keep score in this is the number of defensive turnovers. So let's say you and me and your wife are on one team, we're on defense, and 3 players are on the other team. Every time we force a turnover, we give it back to them. So it may take them 10 times to score, and so we get 10 points.
Okay.
And if you catch the disc on defense, you're obligated by law to spike the disc the best you can. Because you're giving it back to them anyway, right? Because they're going to get, so you catch the disc, you got to, spike it. That's just 5 count. All the rules we're talking about, if they travel to turnover, if they take more than 3 steps is a turnover, and if they pivot, if they don't invert their pivot, if they pivot to the outside. I mean, there's only 3 players. So if you pivot to the outside in a 5 count, you might as well have turned the disc over anyway.
Yeah, you didn't mention that earlier, the inverted pivot, but I was sure it was in the obvious rules of.
Yeah. Right. That just goes without saying.
That being said, do you have a stall count for this exercise?
5.
5. Okay.
And the results I've got, and it's called Ball Breaker because you take some conventional players who are used to thinking a certain way. Oh, damn. You do some conventional players who are very stubborn. This is how it is. And you break their balls. That's a turnover. You threw it in, and I caught your disc, spike, boom, turn it. Like, you just stop doing this. Like, this game is so easy. There's no way you should be making all these mistakes. And then the results I've gotten from Ball Break over the last, what has it been, 30 years? Jesus Christ. It's been 30 years. The results are very consistent and very powerful, that you get a cohesion and a consistency across your team, across all the players. That's very effective in any offense, against any defense. It just changes eye contact, communication, nonverbal communication cues, all these things to sort of accelerate adoption of a dribbling based offense much quicker.
Speaking of any defense, do you have in store an anti-motion defense or anything that's, what is to your in your experience the most effective way of mitigating the effectiveness of dribbling?
Mitigating Frank Huguenard, there's no answer. I know, some people might take that as arrogance, but when you know, like I just know dribbling Rex Ultimate, that when I'm in, if I've got rebounders, of course you have to have, if I go and play and not a single player on the field knows how to rebound, yeah. But in that situation, no one can stop me. And I'm 61 years old. That's not about me. That's A, about dribbling, and B, about the stupid rules of Ultimate. That said, I haven't played man-on-man defense since 1988. Dribbling obliterates man-on-man defense. I mean, it's just not fair. Various zones work, and of course, the windier it is, you want to do it. But if it's not windy, and I'm able to penetrate through the main core of the box or whatever the front is, lights out, game over.
Sure. We agree. Ultimate is a game where every single rule is in favor of the offense, except perhaps for pick and travels. Travels, okay. Let's not.
No travel. No, that's an advantage of
travel,
offense.
yeah,
And
travel, yes.
Pick is not. And the question is why is it? Why is it in a game that has this tremendous lopsided offensive bias?
Do you have to work
our
that
teams,
much?
Our offenses in conventional Ultimate so ridiculously inefficient? Like, what the hell? But the answer to your question is the best defense against the dribble is a matchup zone. A matchup zone is basically it's somewhere between a zone and man-on-man, but you're playing a region. You're playing a marker, or you're playing a middle, or you're playing a deep, and you're constantly switching. So in any given point, you're going to switch 30 times or whatever. And occasionally you do a rotation. The difference between a rotation and a switch is when you rotate, you're rotating from one zone to the next zone. So normally you're in the marker zone and you're switching and marking, but then you might rotate with another player where they come in and mark and you cover their middle position or whatever. Okay. So matchup zone's a lot more fun, a lot more intellectually stimulating.
You can't have less intellectual stimulation than a pure Mandy.
Yeah, Mandy is very selfish, very unilateral. There's nothing collaborative about it. Here's my job. I'm going to do this. And I'm doing good. Yeah, no, it's the opposite of that. It's, hey, we're a teammate. We're going to stop them. And you get even let's say you get, let's say if you statistically got the exact number of turnovers in the matchup zone against a man-on-man zone, a man-on-man defense. Okay, let's say in both games you got 10 turnovers.
Okay, so you're saying that the man zone would have
not man zone, man-on-man versus matchup.
Versus versus matchup zone. Then this one would have consumed less energy, achieving the same results.
And there's one other advantage too. What that other advantage? Yes, it's more efficient, so it's less energy, and there's one more great thing that happens when you turn it over. What's the advantage?
Apart from having the disc back.
Well, you have the disc back in man-on-man or matchup.
You're saying that you're already set up to play the.
You're already set up as a team. the matchup is a team defense. You kind of know where each other are at. You're communicating constantly with your eyes. And so when there's a turnover, you're already a collaborative
already
unit.
set to attack. Yeah.
You know where your teammates are. You know, everything is set up. Whereas on a man-on-man defense, when you get the turnover, it's, you know, there's nothing. You know, it might have something or whatever, but it's just conventional ultimate. Okay, I'm going to play quarterback, and I mean it can work, but by definition or by law, when you turn it over on the matchup zone, you've already collaborated in that turnover, and you're ready to continue that collaboration on offense now.
Okay.
And it's way more efficient by a long shot.
Yeah, sure. The lack of matchup zones is perhaps then the reason why we don't see that many, I don't know if you have the word, but counterattacks in Ultimates. I mean, every other sports, when there is a turnover, the opposing team is ready to bounce on this error and to make sure they are set up as quickly as they can to try and benefit from this imprecision or this mistake. And in Ultimate, how many times have you seen there is a turnover, everybody stops, you wait for the stack to set up, you wait for the handler to get back.
It's crazy. It's insanity. Like you said, there's this huge offensive advantage, and they just piss it all away. Like, you've got, what are you doing? Yeah, you know, what? Yeah,
You want to make sure the person would
I don't think they have
the disc.
Yeah, so why the hell are you playing Ultimate when you have someone on your team who's not experienced? Like, everybody in your team should know what to do. Come on, man, this isn't hard.
Yeah, that could have been the reason when the sport was first created. That should not be the same thing 60 years after.
That's not true. I would say what you're describing, you wouldn't have seen that really much before 1990. So for the first 30 years or whatever, 20, 30 years, it was more that's a live disc. Let's go, and play. And then slowly, I think when maybe the vert stack kind of started formulating in the 90s, by definition, the vert stack kind of calls for a timeout or a reset. But it wasn't always that way. That's sort of a new thing, and it's dumb.
There was something before the vert stack?
Oh, there's all kinds of things. Ugly changed Ultimate. Ultimate was a lot more dynamic. Ultimate seems to me was a lot more passionate before the Ugly, because Ugly wasn't necessarily a bad thing. The problem with it was that people didn't understand, when you want to cure a disease, you need to get to the root cause. And the way
rules.
Right, of course. Well, not the rules, actually, as we're going to learn on Thursday with Johnny Bansfield, that it's the framework, because the framework dictates the rules. And it's actually the framework. When people understand what the framework of Ultimate is, they're going to want to puke. It's so, this should have never happened. But the UPA solution to Uglymet was observers. It wasn't, sort of, they doubled down on their ideology instead of realizing, oh, maybe the ideology is fine and we need to fix the framework and fix the rules. No, they just spirit of the game shamed players into not arguing. And now you got this blasé milquetoast Ultimate that's not fun, and it's not good looking, and it's and they're trying to professionalize it.
We still have some pretty good discussions in Europe. Beside the international competitions, observers are not a thing at all.
Right.
And a lot of people in France, for example, are against observers. So we still have these passionate discussions, whether or not it's in or out, but we kept that.
We need to, I hope that I'm successful on Thursday, and I don't know how we do this in terms of, as a community, take a good long hard look in the mirror and say, holy crap, Frank's right. This is nonsense. We need to go down and just hit a big reset button and start from scratch. Why are picks illegal? Picks were illegal 50 years ago because they were playing on a blacktop in a high school and they didn't want people getting clobbered on pavement. Okay, maybe we still want to have picks, but we should at least understand why a certain rule is what it is. And it needs to be like a wholesale, comprehensive, okay, here's what it is. And we don't, and like I said, when people find out what the game is on this Thursday, they're going to realize this has to change. This is insanity.
You
Anyway.
have a pretty huge responsibility then on Thursday. No, I mean the community will have this one, but
I've got it down.
Okay.
I think I have the responsibility will be on the community to get beyond their frank derangement syndrome, and and just look objectively at what I'm presenting. I don't think there's going to be a debate. There shouldn't be a debate. What I have is factual. There may be things you can argue here, argue there, but overall, the case I'm presenting is very compelling. What we do with that information as a community is a different story, but the game needs to be overhauled. It's just was harebrained to begin with, and we need to just say, wait a second. And if we're not going to overhaul, let's just agree. Okay, we're just going to agree that we're going to play with this lunacy.
We can live with at least.
Right, but at least know what it is that we're living with. Nobody knows what we're living with. That's the problem. They don't have no idea. Yeah.
Frank, I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to leave in a few minutes. It's almost 11 p.m. here. And there is work tomorrow and stuff like that. I love this discussion. I will watch it several times, I guess, to make sure I've understood every finesse. The idling stuff will revolutionize a lot of how we approach in our team.
I think that's a big thing. That'll change a lot, because you see, I tried to point it out at the start by saying, look, imagine a basketball player catching the ball, bouncing it once, and then just standing like a statue. That's what the best ultimate players in the world do every time. They just stand there like a statue. If everyone starts idling, the game will change overnight. Not to mention dribbling, blah 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 blah. Any more questions?
I think we've covered almost all of them. If you have any list of the different type of plays you mentioned from the sideline to try and initiate play with the two people, I would love to have this list.
I don't know. That's proprietary. That's my
sure. It is.
That's my intellectual property.
It is.
I would say this: if someone wants to know what they are, they can hire me as a coach. But I swear to God, over a 10-year period, we had a player efficiency rating on those plays of 2, which is off the charts efficient. I mean, just if you look at the formula for what player efficiency rating is, it's crazy. Out of all the shit I did in California, no one ever, it boggles my mind. It was unstoppable 99.99% of the time. Like occasionally, it got a turnover, but there's never been an ultimate in ultimate anything as effective as that one thing. And it was just a side in, side out kind of play. But anyway, I'll think about it. But it'd be better to illustrate it on the field by some team, or maybe I could make a video of it. But man, I still have memories of calling certain plays and my players, when we ran it, just giggling because it just worked. I just kept getting later. Okay, let's do this. This signal, or I had this. This signal was, and it was, it was giggle worthy. I mean, it was just so ridiculous. You just laughed at oh my God, this worked. It should revitalize for sure. Because it's a whole, and it's just one play or one
a whole set of variation.
One scenario. The scenario is a side out, a play in, but or you could actually do it off like a pull in the middle of the field. It didn't matter where, but yeah, those need to be revitalized. I'll think about.
Don't worry.
Well, it's not even part of the motion offense. It's not part of dribbling or anything.
No, sure.
But I should share it.
It's something on its own.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Flo.
The pleasure was whole mine.
Yeah.
And if you manage to keep that composure with Johnny Bunsfield, you may have some pretty good chances of making sure everyone understands how the frameworks need to be refined.
I've run into, and hopefully maybe people will watch this beforehand, but I've run into, even now I run into, people arguing with me just for the sake of arguing, like they just, you may have experienced this, but I'd be better off insulting an Ultimate player's mother than I would be in criticizing Ultimate, correct? Like we all know this is true. Like Ultimate player, they take criticism or attack on their sport so deeply personally that they're unable to actually realize, oh, maybe we need to take our medicine. Like as much as we love Ultimate, maybe we'll love it more if we tweak it here and tweak it there, and the name of this podcast is Dogs and Baskets for a reason, because we all get asked the same question. Oh, that's the thing with the kids down at the park with the baskets, or that's the thing with the dogs. For 60 years, we've been asked this question, and it's like, or 50 years, and if you're good with that, and I don't know a player who is, but if you're good with that, let's just go with what's going, because unless we take a good look at the framework and the subsequent rules and the guardrails, it's going to be Dogs and Baskets. So
luckily for us in France, it's associated with Ultimate Fighting, so people think I'm a fighter, so that's I go with it.
Ultimate Fighting is that's a distant third, but I've gotten a lot of Ultimate Fighting too. Sure. Anyway, thank you so much for your questions and your presence. It's been really good to bounce this off of somebody, and I think this will be hopefully very useful for a lot of people around the world.
I hope so too.
And the idling really is the sort of the centerpiece here. I think it's the missing link.
I don't recall having seen it written everywhere else. Sorry.
I just made it up. I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm just bullshit.
Sure. No, but you've already mentioned that you were pivoting a lot, and I think it's good to have a name for that and the whole systems that goes with it. So that's perfect. Thank you.
Right. No, I made it up this morning. I was thinking of, okay, if you're sitting at the car, but I made that I didn't make the word up, of course, but you're right. Having a name for it and saying, here's idling and you should be doing it this much time. And it's the same thing as your car at a red light, and your motor's idling. It's still running. It's not stopped. Imagine stopping your car. I guess some people with electric cars would do that every time they stop, but the idea that idling is, like dribbling. I've been dribbling for 30 years, but I only started calling it dribbling like a year ago or 2 years ago, because that's what it is. So idling is like that.
It's a great resource. Well, thank you, Frank, and I wish you a pleasant afternoon, I guess, for you.
Yeah, it's 5 o'clock or something. Time to get to work. Yeah. So this has been a pleasure, and hopefully this will be a big week between you and Johnny. I think maybe we get some good work done.
Hopefully, yes.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Frank. See you.